gosh, that was terrifying.
Announcement
Okay.
for it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amara and Augustin, and I'll be hosting today's episode of Fanachu. If I look familiar, it's probably because I was on an episode in 2021 and been hoping for decolonization. If not, lucky you, you'll be seeing a lot more of me as Fanachu's newest member. So I'll be the outreach manager. And basically, I'll be in charge of current patrons and new patrons, and also filling up Maget's schedule and my schedule with cool people to interview. So if you know anyone or you have something to say, don't be afraid to message me. Thanks. Today we have a very special guest. I am a huge fan of his music. I'm pretty sure you've heard his music too. Probably Guam related. He does a really great cover of the classic Chamoru song, Inner Voices by Marianas Homegrown. He also has quite a few singles out that I'm sure we'll talk about today. So, Micah, could you do a little introduction of yourself, please?
Absolutely. Suzuki Maasi. Guahusi Micah Garrido. Thank you for having me on one of my favorite podcasts. I'm a huge fan of Fanatsu, so it's a little mini dream come true to be on this. I'm a huge fan of Maget's rare vinyl collection. I have a few. We can see if I could go to it. I got a few rare Tomorrow vinyl myself. um, and no, I'm just thank you for reaching out to me. I'm so excited to do this.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. So could you tell me a little about your backstory? So you're from Guam, right? Did you grow up in Guam or?
So I was born on Guam.
Mhm.
I was born. My parents had a house in Maleso, and the rest of my family kind of lived in the Zotnia area. And then we moved when I was a baby to the middle of the United States. We lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and so
I
I grew
forgot that place existed.
up. Yeah. Everybody I know who's not from there thinks that it's in a different part of the country. Um, but it's in the smack middle. It's the exact opposite of an island. It's right in the Midwest. I grew up there, moved around a little bit, and have found myself for the past actually like 8 years here in Tongva territory in Los Angeles, California.
Wow, LA. I just got back from there in March.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
How are you liking it there? Are you surviving okay? It's
I'm definitely the surviving is the correct word. It is it's a tough life out here, but it's rewarding and I love what I do and I love the people around me and I think the big reason that I continue to live in Los Angeles is people take what they do as seriously as
yeah,
what I
yeah.
do.
It's
Um
definitely a mecca for musicians, artists, and
yeah,
good food. Oh my,
yes, all true. All true.
definitely.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of islanders there?
Yeah, so well, I think most fortunately recently in the past year or so I've connected with Nate Taitano, who is a fantastic drummer from Guam.
I
That's
think
my
I've seen some of your videos with him.
Yeah, he's the best. And he's probably the islander that I see the most. He's the only Chamorro person that I see the most. Aside from that, I would say the big diasporic population of Pacific Islanders is based in Long Beach. And I feel really fortunate to be involved with the Couture and Samoro Foundation. It's based out in Long Beach by my auntie Heidi Kenga. Heidi and Joey Kenga run that together, and they do some amazing work around chant and dance, and all based with a really just rich community of folks. I'd say the other big island populations out here would be the Tongans and
Tongans, I had no idea.
yeah, Tongans, some Samoans. That's the other big, like the current artist in residence at Pacific Island Ethnic Arts Museum, which is kind of where um, uh, KCF, Couture and Samara Foundation, is really working out of. He's a Samoan artist. JP, he's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like lots of fun. I'm in Florida right now, and there is not. I just moved here, but well, about a year ago, a little over a year ago. But there's not a big population of us, really,
Yep.
unfortunately.
I lived in Miami, and so I was very
Wow.
I will say there's islanders of a different type, and there are Cubans and Haitians.
I mean, they're they're great too, but yeah, they're not a lot of us, which is I guess not that surprising, considering how far away it is. But definitely, I grew up in Washington State,
Oh, really? Okay.
so I mean, you over there, you get used to it and you take it for granted,
Absolutely.
having this like island community, like whether you're related to them or not, like it's a huge presence there. Coming
Exactly.
down here and you like tell people you're from Guam, and they're like, "What?"
Is that in Latin America? That's what I got. My
Oh,
girlfriend
really?
thought that it
Okay.
was in
Oh
Central.
man, there's some good ones. I think I've gone. I got asked, do we eat spaghetti?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, some funny stuff. Which actually, I've been thinking about doing an episode of that. Just coming up to random people. Florida would be the perfect place for that to ask them, like, what do they know about Guam? You probably get some pretty funny answers.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, let's see. I was so nervous for this, to be honest. I was talking to Miguel, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you'll do fine. It's just like a conversation. It's just like talking." I'm like, I don't at this point, I don't even know how to have a conversation. Like, I have completely forgotten. But I had this huge like writer's block. Um, but I reached out to a bunch of people. I was like, what would you want to be asked?
Mhm.
Which helped out a lot. So one of the questions was actually, as a creative, how do you get rid of that writer's block? Like, what do you do to conquer that?
Oh, I'm not a good authority at all. My answer to that would be live in it and let it torment you. And I would say most of my time is spent in writer's block. I would just say like develop, for lack of a better term, like coping mechanisms with it, and just understand that it's not the end all be all of your creativity. Um, I mean, like I said, most of my time is spent with it, which is why uh, I don't put out much music. Not because I don't love the act and putting it out, but because I kind of have my own policy with myself to not put anything out until I think it's better than everything else that I've put out. And so just coming to terms with what writer's block looks like for you, and then understanding that it's not the end all be all of your creativity. I think are the
It's
two.
it's tough, especially as you get older. I tried to write a poem the other day, and it used to come. I mean, granted, I was practicing writing a lot more. It used to come a lot easier when I was younger, and you really have to exercise that creative side of you. I mean, you're a sound engineer, so I'm sure you get to do a lot more, but there's not a lot of jobs out there that, exercise that creative part of you, like
Sure.
force you to do that every day. So that's really important, I
Yeah.
think. But I still haven't started the poem. I
Yeah.
tried to write I tried to write just one word on the page, and I was like, maybe from this one word, all these ideas will branch up. It hasn't yet, but maybe next episode. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Absolutely. I think I'm friends with a lot of people whose livelihood is being creative regularly, whether that be, I mean,
Yeah.
a number of things. But I think the number one thing that I get from them is show up. Like just do the sitting down, and that's a huge part of the first step. Um, yeah, so no, I'm there. I don't ever get it.
Right. Um, Also, how do you speak such good Chamorro? I've always wondered. I'm like, damn, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but we can edit
Yeah.
it.
No, I'm honored. I'm honored. I think like a lot of us, I'm very insecure about my tomorrow. I talk to my grandparents on the phone. I listen. I think the biggest thing that I got to credit is I listen to a lot of tomorrow music. Um,
Really?
and listening to tomorrow music, I can uh I can fool people when I sing tomorrow too. I think that's a big one.
You told me. So I was like, how old is this kid? Like,
No, Yeah, and it's something that I've tried to put a lot of time into, and I want to try and be really intentional about the integrity of how it sounds. It's a beautiful language, and I think to
It
capture
really is. You did it justice. That is such a beautiful song. I feel like I've cried to it a couple of times
I'm
in the
honored.
car on a rainy day, to be honest.
Wow.
But I was listening to some of your other stuff, and it's pretty eclectic. Let me see. Trying to think. I really liked. Let me see. Are You Enraged was really good. What's the backstory of that song?
Yeah, that one. I wrote that. Actually, I have a very, very vivid memory of it. I think George Floyd was murdered
Mhm.
May 21st of 2020, or like the last week of May.
Mhm.
Um, and that whole week I had stewed on it, how awful it was, and how it resonated with the country, and what kind of reactions it was bringing out of people. And I wrote the first. It was like one of the only songs that I've written truly in one sitting, and so I wrote it in one day, and then my birthday was 4 days later, and I called out of work, and
Yeah.
exactly what is heard on the record, everything in that was recorded in one day because of
Oh my
how
gosh.
I think how urgent it
Yeah.
was feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think those lyrics, I remain really proud of those lyrics, and I was looking for the right audience to share them with, because when it's the right audience, it can be really impactful, and it can create a really beautiful and difficult shared moment.
Yeah. Wow. And then I did add, I also really liked Typhoon. It says BM10 Typhoon.
Yeah.
I added that to my Merlot playlist because I was like, I could have a glass of red wine with this. Sure. What was the inspiration behind that one?
Yeah, so one of my dear friends, his name is Cesar Martinez, and he was moving to New York. This is like right when I graduated college, and I had just gone through a breakup. He had too, and he had decided that in the time before he moved to New York, that he wanted to make a music video of one of my songs, but I hadn't written anything that he wanted to make a music video to. So it was actually his idea for the music video, and I wrote that in about 2 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And then we recorded. So I finished the song in one week, and then the next Friday we recorded it, and then I held on to it for 2 years because I
Oh my
take
God.
forever to mix things, and can't make up my mind about how I want to do things. And yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's the answer to a writer's block then. Just a breakup, right?
Yeah, yeah, just like traumatic experiences for either the nation or
That's
yourself.
exhausting though. But yeah. Yeah, I really like that one. It was definitely more of like just a vibe, It was less
Yeah,
focused on the lyrics, more of just that feeling, which I
absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted that song, and we've played it live a lot of different ways. And every time I work with people live to play it, I always say I want it to sound like debris moving around. Like it's yeah.
words from an artist.
Yes.
Sounds like it. Let's see. I actually think some one or two. So when writing a song, what comes first, the melody or the lyrics?
It's a good question.
For you at least.
Yeah, recently I actually won't ride a song out through the end
Hmm.
unless it's both at the same time. Um, so like I have a notes app thing that's just like the equivalent of pages and pages of random words, and then the equivalent, the voice memo app in my phone, or like my hard drive with all my recordings on it. Like I'll have little ideas that I think are really good, and as soon as I have a musical idea that never gets lyrics, but it's like a fully produced thing, that's a death sentence for that idea. Because I, for whatever reason, like no matter what lyrics come out, they just don't end up working. And the same with these lyrics in this thing. If they don't have a melody that they live with, like right off the bat, it's just into the trash, or just they live in this thing forever and ever. Um, and so, yeah, I started actually specifically just holding my ukulele and only really engaging in the full process unless the lyrics and the melody came at the exact same time. And when they come at the same time, you can't stop them. And like they just keep coming, or just like the song writes itself is what I would say. Like that's the most creatively fulfilling experience, is when you kind of enter flow. And I'm sure you understand with like poetry and writing, and
Yeah.
as soon as you stop thinking about it and you stop thinking about what little things are, the whole meaning comes out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see anything in your head like when that happens, or like you're playing and you're closing your eyes, just like a feeling or
Yeah, I'll start to have ideas about what um what I want to see specifically. I'll start to have feelings about what I, excuse me, want to feel. Um, like it might be something that I'm going through immediately, or I think more recently I've been really attracted to the idea of writing other people's stories, or writing outside of my own head and writing in other voices. I start to feel a lot of freedom that way.
yeah, that sounds like a totally different experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll sometimes I'll write for other people. Like I'll write lyrics and melody that I want somebody else to
Mhm.
sing. And that's a totally different thing too. Just depends. Yeah.
Gotcha. Let me see. Who are your musical inspirations?
Yeah. Well, he's up. I got the records up on the wall. I think my biggest musical inspiration is Johnny Sablon. Um, just by nature of the records themselves mean a lot to me. They were actually, the first four were recorded here in Hollywood. Um,
Yay.
yeah, and I drive by the at least the address that's on the records. None of the studios exist anymore, but the street that Hoffaday Records and Tapes, the address is like a block and a half away from where I work.
There was a Hoffaday Records in Hollywood.
Hoffaday Records and
That's
Tapes,
a
and it's,
dope
I
place.
think it was, if I had to guess, I mean Miguel would probably know this, but like I think it was just an office that it was based out of, like a small space. It might have been in his apartment. I don't know. But yeah, it's over on La Brea, and I work really, really close to there. Anyway, nerd moment. Yeah, Johnny Sablon is probably my biggest musical influence. Bill Withers is another really, really big musical influence for me. Um, he's a master of simplicity, and I think every time that I do the simplest idea that I can think of, it's the most effective, and I get that directly from him. Um, and then like I love Frank Ocean so much. um,
Doesn't.
yeah, who doesn't? Who
I could
doesn't?
make a whole podcast about Frank
I
Ocean.
could do a whole thing on it. Yeah, I mean, like, I think what I get out of his music is a full sense of uh zoomed out, like
Mhm.
it means so much. The music means so much more than the chords and the lyrics combined. Like I don't know what it is, but it's magic that comes out of like stream of consciousness, or like awkward weird chords.
He's so creative. So
Yeah, it
creative.
is, it is truly, like, in my opinion, some of the, like, the most expressive and pure art music. Not defined by meaning, not defined by aesthetic, like
Yeah.
just really out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a hard time listening to newer artists, but Frank Ocean is definitely he's one of those artists that's just it's a feeling sometimes, you know. And he'll have stuff going on. I'm like, what is that sound? Like, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I A couple years ago, and it's kind of, I can't go back from it. A couple years ago, I saw him at a festival, and I waited with my good friend Mariana for like 5 hours just to get like probably like 10 to 13 rows back from him.
Oh my
And it was everything that I felt about the records was entirely recontextualized when I saw it coming out of his mouth from like 25 feet away.
yeah,
Um, and he like it was a huge festival set, and he made it feel like it was a living room.
wow,
Um, and I don't know, I indescribable. I mean, like one of the top experiences of my life.
wow.
And ever since then, I was like, how can you make it doesn't matter how many people are in front of you, but how can it you all bring them right here and just keep them
Yeah,
super close?
yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, it's cool that, well, I don't listen to Johnny Saban as much as I should, I feel like, but I do see like a little bit of those elements from like Bill Withers, like the slow pace, and then I guess the creativity of like Frank Ocean and some of your music where it's very, different than like I would say, mainstream like how would you classify your music? Like what genre? I feel
Yeah,
like that's a tough question, huh?
it is a tough it is a tough question, especially because in my head,
Mhm.
uh, genre is an instrument that you can use, um, as long as you've studied it really well. And so I consider myself above anything else like a songwriter.
Mhm.
Like I spend my time and my energy is spent into the writing of the song. Um, so genre wise, I would say like singer songwriter because I use so many other traditions and mediums to kind of communicate. So I'll put on sounds or I'll kind of do intensive studies of a genre to capture to figure out like what emotion am I getting out of the genre and then using the genre for the appropriate song story.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hmm. Do you know anything about the decolonization movement or
Yeah, I am always looking to learn more. I'm so glad that it's becoming a greater and greater part of the discourse. When I did some of the like studying it in school, um, I remember like Miguel had a column that he was writing regularly about just answering questions about it. And I remember that was really, really inspiring to me. That there's kind of the idealized version of decolonization, which is, I think people can, especially like older folks, can cast off um, as impossible or something that is idealized. And then there's a very real way where you can decolonize your diet, or you can decolonize your thinking, or you can decolonize your relationships. Like you can kind of dissect the dynamics, the decolonial dynamics in a relationship. Um, so I am all on board for it. I'm along to learn and I'm along to
that's
practice.
a good way to put it. That's a great way, to put it to older, the elders, which are definitely it's a lot more complicated to talk to them about it. But yeah, do you have any like are you doing any inner work to like decolonize yourself or do you have any ways of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, okay. I have a song that I wrote when I was 18. When I was really feel when it was feeling like the need to decolonize was tearing me apart from the inside. Because I'm Somali, I'm half Chamorro, half Haole, and I was like, there was a distinct period in my life that it was very painful to try to do that work. And now with about 10 years on from that, like I try and hold hands a little bit more with that pain or just that understanding, like understanding that it's okay that there's always going to be more work to do. And the best thing that you can do is to devote your whole self to learning what may need to happen.
Right. That I mean, that age is such a hard transition. Did you ever I feel like when I was growing up, I did so much like cultural switching,
Mhm.
especially I remember right when I moved to the States, I would change how I said like mountain, I
Sure.
changed to mountain, or I used to say orange and I changed it to orange and
Yeah.
things like that are so detrimental. You don't realize it as a child,
Mhm.
of course, but as you get older, you're like, oh my, this is a whole culture that I'm carrying on my back. And I don't know what, I mean, it's sad that you get those signals, from somewhere to change how your accent, as a young person, where am I even getting that? Um, so that it's, I mean, people don't realize that's why colonization is so bad because it's something that's very hard to reverse, basically.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah. I the I had an opposite kind of experience where I went through a phase where I felt like the most Chamorro thing for me to do would be to learn how to talk really taut and like put on a whole accent and perform for my family that I could do everything and like perform that I had lived on the island and had that upbringing. And with a little bit more perspective, I realize at least where I am with it now is like the most tomorrow thing that I could do is be myself and learn the language and respect that and respect the experiences of people like who grew up on the island and also learn to respect my own experience of being a diasporic tomorrow. Um, and so like I've stopped using a voice with my family. I've stopped putting on. Now I don't feel the need to perform it because I can feel like it's my true authentic self to just love them and cook food like and have that be the love language.
I
Yeah.
mean, you covered like one of the most well-known tomorrow songs, and tomorrow, on Guam. So there's that. That's definitely something. I
Yeah.
would call that like decolonizing yourself for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah. That was an interesting. That's always going to be an interesting thing for me because I'm still really insecure. I was really insecure about my Samora accent for that song, and like, yeah, I think I will always think that I pronounced things wrong in that song, or there's something else that I could have done. But yeah, this many years on, again, I'm glad that I think I'm most honored that it's meant so many people or that like people
Mhm.
actually were like, oh, okay, this is like you can do this
Yeah.
to a classic like something
What
that's
was the story behind that song? How did you go about, end up recording that song?
yeah. That was one that I tossed around for a while. I uh I used to work in a recording studio and I was not paid, so it was not work. I was interning. But the benefit of it is that we would get these long hours if the studio wasn't booked and I was there to like assist for something else and they didn't need help. Like we would have a recording studio for, I mean, hours and hours into the like late into the night. And and during those hours when I couldn't think of anything else to do, I would sit at a piano or like a Rhodes or something and just work stuff out. And after listening to Inner Voices for however many like times, I was at this keyboard in the studio and I started plinking out like what it could be. And I was like, okay, well, what if it was a soul song? Like, what are all the things that would go along with it being a soul song?
Oh, yeah.
Um, and then rested on it for a while. And then, especially when it was closer to being done, I kind of had to come to terms with how much that song meant to not only like people, but specifically the McJohns and like the people that wrote it. So Uncle Chuck McJohn, who's luckily still with us, um, and realizing that like that song had a legacy of people exploiting it, people not paying the royalties or not asking for permission, which obviously like permission and just that showing that respect is so important in our culture. Um, and so I was fortunate enough to meet Chuck McJohn and get his permission before I released it.
Did he like it?
He did like it. He did like it. Yeah, and I think like that whole process of being worried about like whether he was gonna like it, how it was gonna go, that was a huge healing process. And again, like kind of the way you said it, like that was a way that I decolonized myself. Was it was a way to kind of marry two parts of myself that were feeling like they were against each other for a long time. And that's really what that song is also about, in a
Mhm.
sense. Like that's why it's in English and in Chamorro.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful song, man.
I think it's one of the greatest songs ever written. I will always hold
Agreed. Lyrically, like, also, warning, I did not know this, but we have 8 minutes left on this
it. Oh,
video.
okay. All right.
Let me see what else. Um, hmm. Also, we need to get you and Maget together to nerd out on your records. I don't know why that hasn't happened, but I mean,
I so here's the story. So I when I was a junior in college, I had a grant. I applied for a grant to do ethnomusicology research, which was 100% an excuse to go to Guam, meet Johnny Sablan, hang out with Michael Clement, and I was there for FestPack too. And so I did get to go, and at the time there were many disciples of Maget who would meet at his class after hours. Um, but again, like, and Professor Michael Clement is another huge. I mean, he did his doctorate research in Chamorro country music.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, there does need to be a research session. This is low key information, but actually, Maget wrote Chamorro lyrics to Typhoon, and I have yet,
Hey,
yeah, I have yet to record them, and the lyrics are devastating. They're
awesome.
beautiful.
Okay. We definitely will look at his calendar and we will put you on there as soon as possible. Well, I think that's all for this time. Thank you so much. It was it was a lot of fun talking about Guam, your music, LA, everything. I'm sure we'll see you on the show again.
Definitely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for letting me ramble and being
Yeah.
down. Congratulations on your first on your first
Did
episode.
I do okay?
Yeah, you did fantastic. I can't wait to hear more.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you guys. See, I don't know how to